This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. So we're learning Sefer Nechemia, Parak Ches, Pasuk Yud. Pasuk Yud. And this is talking about when the Jewish people returned to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim. They rebuilt the walls. Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt. And they read the Sefer Torah. And they made a treaty. They made a cherem that they're going to keep the Torah. And in Pasuk Tes, Nechemia, the Tershasa, and Ezra HaSofer, and the Leviim said to the people, don't cry today. Today is Rosh Hashanah. It's not a day of crying. Now, certainly in the Galus, the Jewish people kept 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. That is the Hanhaga in the Goyla. However, here they come on the second day, here they come back to Eretz Yisrael, and they're in Yerushalayim, and they figured the idea of 2 days of Rosh Hashanah would become obsolete. And here it is, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, and they're laning the Haftarah of the second day of Rosh Hashanah, and they're thinking to themselves, what do we need a second day? We're back in the Holy Land. What is it? Has God not accepted our rededication to the Beis HaMikdash? Or perhaps our Nevi'im have foreseen that the Beis HaMikdash would be destroyed and they maintained 2 days of Rosh Hashanah? They felt very distraught. They felt very rejected by the having to keep 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. However, in Pasuk Yud, Nechemia says to them, go, eat fat foods, ushasu mamtakim, drink sweet drinks, v'shilchu manois, send portions, la'ein nachain life, for those who have not prepared, ki kadosh hayom la'adoinenu, because this day is sacred to our Master. This day is sacred to Hashem. V'al te'otzevu, do not be sad, ki chedvas Hashem, because the joy of God, Hi ma'uzchem, is your strength. Now what does it mean? That the joy of God will give you strength. What was Nechemia saying to them? So Rav Zevin explains that this is not an idea of keeping Rosh Hashanah out minagav eseinu b'yadeinu or sveika d'yayma. What Nechemia was saying is that there are cases where 2 days of Rosh Hashanah is me'ikar hadin. In other words, where God Himself mandates that you have to keep 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, and that is if the Eidim do not return, if the Eidim do not spot the new moon on the 30th day, so the 30th day by default had already been called Rosh Hashanah. Then the next day, the Eidim come, so then there are 2 days, not because this is a remnant of the diaspora. There's 2 days Meikar Hadin. So what Nechemia is saying is, Ki Kadosh Hayom Ladoinenu. This is a Torah mandated 2-day Rosh Hashanah. What does it mean? Don't be sad, because the joy of God is your strength. It says in Metzudas David, Ratzaloymar Simchas Yomtiv. The joy of God, which is the joy of Yomtiv, which is a Simcha Shel Mitzvah, Hititein Lachem Oiz V'Sa'atzumos, will give you strength and fortitude. Don't be dejected. The Rabbi also says, Ratzaloymar HaMivtzar V'Hachoizek Sheteschazku B'I. The strength that you will have, hu shetismechu, is rejoicing b'masharatza Hashem Yisbarach, shetismechu by.
So which day is the first day of Tishrei according to that situation?
Well, if Eidim would have come on the 30th day of Elul, that would have been Rosh Hashanah. Only one day. But because they didn't, so they had already proclaimed the first day, the 30th day Rosh Hashanah, because figuring the Eidim would come, and they didn't. So then they were forced to proclaim the next day Rosh Hashanah. Not like we do, day one and day.
Count day one of Tishrei as the previous day. One that they held waiting for you. No,
that one.
You count 10 days from the second.
That one is Me'ubar. It's they count 10 days from the second day. Yeah. Yeah. In other words, Me'ubar means swallowed up. So in other words, If let's say on the 30th day the Edom would have showed, so that would be the first day of Tishrei. That would belong to Tishrei. But now that it didn't show, so then that 30th day gets swallowed by Elul. It's Me'ubar.
Right, but in those days they didn't send out Edom, right? They had a Shluchim on Tishrei. Right? Did they send out Shluchim on Tishrei? I think they had to do that now.
Didn't they send it out?
For the answer, sure, but you still needed Edom in Eretz Yisrael to proclaim Kudash. It wasn't Al Pi Cheshbon, it was Al Pi Re'iyah.
Right, but then they have to play what happened most of the time in the past. When would Rosh Hashanah come about, so that the people would know what day to really celebrate the diaspora? Yom Kippur? Or they just took 30th and the 1st.
I mean, what they do in the Galus? How do they calculate?
What did they do, those guys?
I don't know.
Like Kabbalah brought.
Where? When?
On the first day on
On the first day, they brought the Karbanos of Rosh Hashanah. On the second day, they also brought the Karbanos of Rosh Hashanah.
And the first.
Didn't
it happen once where they proclaimed
Shiur.
and the Edom
came after, and because of that,
so that they made 2 days.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting point the pasuk makes. The shulchu manos, and send gifts. So now, what do you mean send gifts? What kind of gifts? This is not Purim. This is not Purim. Now, we did have last time that some of the laws of Yom Kippur are learned out from here. Right? In Parak Ches Pasuk Daled, we learn out how many aliyos are given on Yom Kippur from Parak Ches Pasuk Daled, that how many people were standing on Ezra's right side and how many people were standing on his left side. He had 6 on the right, 6 on the left, and we were learning out the dinim of Yom Kippur. And our explanation, our explanation was that they were fasting on that day. They were not aware that on Rosh Hashanah you're not allowed to fast. So that day did, for them, at least have a spirit of Yom Kippur.
What do you mean they didn't know that you don't fast on?
They didn't know that you don't fast on Rosh Hashanah. They thought Rosh Hashanah. This is the source. Do we have a Mishabura Chilek Vav here? Mishabura.
What did they do in Bayis Rishon? They fasted. What did they do in Babel? They fasted.
These people weren't alive during Bayis Rishon. These were people who had.
What did they do in Babel?
To them, it was clear.
In Babel, they fasted on Rosh Hashanah. They fasted Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? How can it be? Doesn't the Torah say that it's a Chag?
No. Torah doesn't say it's a Chag. Here, if you look in Shulchan Aruch Siman Tav
It
Kuf
doesn't say you should fast.
Tzaddik Zayin.
How can you fast if the Torah didn't?
In Mutter L'Sanis Rosh Hashanah. Oichlem v'shoisim usmeichem ve'in mesa'anin b'Rosh Hashanah v'loi b'shah b'shuva amnam lo yoichlu kol seveyam l'man lo yeklu rosham v'tia yiras Hashem apneim. Says the Mishabura Ratzalai ma'af shu yom adin, even though Rosh Hashanah is yom adin mikol makom mitzvah shel v'samachta b'chagecha shech gam boi shegam hu b'chlal chag. Rosh Hashanah is a chag. Where in the Torah does it say Rosh Hashanah is a chag? Nowhere in the Chumash is Rosh Hashanah called a chag. The answer is it's a pasuk in Tehillim. Tiku b'chodesh shofar. No? B'kesel yom chagenu. Tiku b'chodesh shofar. B'kesel yom chagenu. V'nemar. Says the Mishabura, our pasuk. V'nemar b'Nechemia ches. Ichlu mashmanim ushesu mamtakim ki kadosh hayom la'adoinenu ve'al te'atzu ki chedvas Hashem hi ma'uscham. So Mishabura cites this pasuk as a proof that you are allowed to eat on Rosh Hashanah. What do they do in Bayis Rishon? Well, presumably they knew the halacha, but we're dealing with people who.
But my point is, what did they do in Babel?
They ate.
They ate. So how come they come to Eretz Yisrael? They stop eating?
We're dealing with people who underwent tremendous suffering. They were exiled. You don't know exactly what the level of education was before Ezra came along. We find before.
This is before Ezra?
This is in the times of Ezra, in the beginning of Ezra. But you have to remember, we're dealing with people, that intermarried. We're going to see soon. They didn't know what Sukkos were. So we're dealing with people that certainly, you know, you want to know a Russian Jew comes. Why don't you know how to put on tefillin? What did your father do? Well, his father didn't have tefillin, right? So
Why how did they know to celebrate Rosh Hashanah? Isn't this what
look,
isn't this
look what Nechemia is doing, right? In the Pasuk and Pasuk Test, you have Nechemia, you have Ezra, and you have the Levium. These are the educators, and they're reading from the Torah, right? They're reading from the Torah, and they're re-establishing Jewish education.
Is this the first Rosh Hashanah that they're doing this?
It doesn't say this is the first Rosh Hashanah, but we're going to see in a few Pasukim this was the first Sukkos. What do you mean the first Sukkos? What did they do last year? What did they do back?
They didn't keep anything.
Like Yom Adin is Yom Kippur, you fast.
So what did they do last year? Presumably, you know what?
Nechemia and Ezra were there.
Okay. Now,
Correct?
Now there's a very important halacha we learn out from this pasuk, and that is the Gemara in Beya on Tesvav Amud Beis wants to know what kind of shalach manas do you give out on Rosh Hashanah, right? Anyone here give out shalach manas on Rosh Hashanah? No, you give the Karnanim cards. Right? What do you?
The tag with the honey on around.
What kind of shalach manas is there on Rosh Hashanah? Every chumrah in the world you keep, and you don't give shalach manas on Rosh Hashanah. It's a pasuk in the Torah. What kind of shalach manas is this? So it says the Gemara in Beya, there's a halacha of Erev Tavshilin. Erev Tavshilin says that are you allowed to cook on Yom Tif? You're allowed to cook on Yom Tif, but you're only allowed to cook for that day. You can't cook for the next day. So if you have Yom Tif on Friday and then the next day Shabbos, how are you going to cook for Shabbos? Well, to cook on Shabbos for Yom Tif is an Issa D'Rabbanan. But Heim Amru v'Heim Amru. The rabbi said you can't cook for Shabbos. But they also said if you start the cooking before Yom Tif, you could continue on Yom Tif for Shabbos. How do you start the process? With Erev Tavshilin. But what about people that didn't prepare Erev Tavshilin? So the rabbi makes it lano, right? That's why every 3-day Yom Tif, I'm always running around with a chicken, like a chicken that I had before Yom Tif. Because normally if you make an Erev Tavshilin for yourself, so you just make the bracha. But if you're doing it for other people, you need to give it to someone to be zoicha in it. And it can't be a member of your household. So now it's 3 minutes before Shabbos, and I'm running around trying to find some Jewish person to hand them the matzah and make a bracha. Right? It happens every Yom Tif.
You do it on the Friday?
No, you do it right before Yom Tif, every Yom Tif. Now, does it help? It's even. It might not even help, by the way, if what the rabbi does for other people. It might not even help. Only if they were an oinus, not if they were negligent. But here's the thing: people who did not prepare Erev Tavshilin,
they can't cook.
They can't cook. So what do you do?
Rely on the
Shalach manas. You gotta send them food.
And they rely on the Erev Tavshilin that.
So 1 second. Could they rely on the rabbi? So 1 second. There are two Gemaras. One Tez Vav and Beis, one on Yud Beis Amud Beis. I just have to find the Gemara in Beya here. This is like this Gemara is from the times of Ezra. The Gemara says, "L'chu ichlu ma'asham shel madam v'shucha manos enachin kajon l'danem ateres v'chadash me'uzcham." What does it mean? Send gifts to those who don't have. It says Gemara, Amar Rav Chizda, L'mi shaloi hiniach eruve tavshilen. To those who do not leave eruv tavshilen. Ike de Amri, mi shalo hayaloi lahaniach eruv tavshilen. Ava mi shahayaloi lahaniach eruv lahaniach paisheyahu. Says Rashi.
Well, that should apply to any Yom then, not just Rosh Hashanah. To send,
maybe it only helps someone who doesn't have, but someone who had and didn't do it, then this eitzah will not work. Okay, fine. Let's continue. The Halavim, the Levites, machshim l'chol ha'am leimar, they silenced the people, saying, "Hasu." What does hasu mean?
Quiet down.
Hush, right? Like has kobasar. Oh, good. Ki hayoim kadosh. Today is holy. V'yal te'atzevu. Don't be sad. So I'll ask you a stira. In Pasuk Yud it says, Ki kadosh hayoim ladoinenu. The day is holy to God. And in Pasuk Yud it says, Ki hayoim kadosh. The day is holy. So what is it? Make up your mind. Is it holy to God or is it holy to Hashem? Says the Malbim. Like Chazal say, Chelkeyu Chatzio Lashem Chatzio Lachem. So now that you already did the Chatzi Lashem, now it's time for Chatzi Lachem. Right? But the Mishnah Berurah says, the Chatzi Lachem is eating, drinking, sleeping. The Chatzi Lashem is learning and davening. But Chazonos,
it's not.
Which one does that belong to?
The Chazan is.
The Chazan. Okay. Fine. So the pasuk continues. Vayelchu kol ha'am. The people went lecha v'lishtos u'shalach manos v'lasos simcha gedola, to make a great simcha. Ki hevinu, they understood badvarim, the matters asher hoidiu lahem. They understood what was being told to them. Uvayoim hasheni, and on the second day, Rashi says of Rosh Hashanah, Nes v'Roshei ha'avos, the heads of the families gathered, l'chol ha'am, for all the peoples, hakohanim, the Haleviim, they gathered Elazar HaSofer, to do what? Ulahaskel al divrei HaTorah, to comprehend, to understand the words of the Torah. Vayimtzu, and they found Kosav BaTorah, written in the Torah, Asher Tziva Hashem, that God commanded, Biyad Moshe, Asher Yeshvu B'nei Yisrael Basukkos, that the B'nei Yisrael should sit in Sukkos, Bechag, on Sukkos, B'chodesh Hashvi, in the 7th month. Imagine such a thing. They opened up the Torah, and they found that on Sukkos, on the 15th day of Tishrei, you have to sit in the Sukkah. Very interesting. Wow. What a major discovery. Big discovery, right? Good morning, America. That on the Yom Tif of Sukkos, did you know this, Rabbi Isai? That on the Yom Tif of Sukkos, you know what you have to do? You have to sit in the Sukkah. That's what they found in the times of Ezra. I mean, why was this such a major discovery? What was the big, the newfound piece of information? Oh, well, it would seem from here that there was a very low level of education, to the point where the people, Pashut, did not know that on the Yom Tif of Sukkot you sit in a sukkah. Can you imagine? Here you have people returning to the Holy Land, building up the walls of Yerushalayim, building up the Mikdash, and they didn't know about a sukkah.
That means they didn't know, they didn't have them in Bavel.
They had they were married to Goyim.
That means these people were so unlearned and alert. Now you say, how's such a thing? Well, do you know what percentage of Jews today know that there's something called a sukkah?
So they used to live, huh?
What do you think?
I would think that most of the people in Bavel were educated.
Most people, it's possible
let's
that...
look at it this way.
Yeah.
They were there for 70 years. 70 years is not really a long time.
3 generations.
It depends. If you get married at 40 or 30, then it's not a long time. If you get married at 18 or less...
It happened in America. Those that came over, the next generation was afraid of God, of the dead. They went to shul, they said, Kaddish.
What do you mean afraid of the dead?
The whole thing. That's what I said.
Okay.
Then, the next generation...
They went to work.
A lot of people went to work. Forget the work.
He's contradicting it.
Then they...
Shabbos afternoon.
The third generation still saw it. Still remembered the Zayda that learned the daven. But the next generation, that will... So it takes 4 generations.
Yeah, but what was the
in Russia, 70 years?
What was the
Out. In Russia, 70 years, wiped out.
What was the purpose of sending the Chorish and Masgir out first?
Okay, I stand corrected.
You see what kind of infrastructure is necessary just to be able to start educating the people. Oh, to Bavel?
Yeah. What was the whole purpose of them out first? And one day it's supposed to be the
Look,
ones who-
it doesn't say over here that nobody knew what sukkahs were, but apparently to the general populace, the concept of a sukkah was a chiddush. Now, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in the Aris Davash says that how did it happen? That you can imagine in times of the Beis Hamikdash, Midon v'yad Beersheva, they knew Kachim v'Taras, yeah? And what happened in 70 years, they lost it to the point where they intermarried and they didn't know what a sukkah is. I mean, every person in this neighborhood, any Jew in this neighborhood knows what a sukkah is.
This neighborhood.
Yeah?
Not
This neighborhood, yeah.
out in the south.
You're right. But what percentage of Jews today know what a sukkah is? You'd be lucky if 50% of Jews knew what a sukkah
But
is.
most of them know Hanukkah and Pesach.
So says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, what happened was, not yet were there any Gezeros D'Rabbanan. Yeah, you can't write on Shabbos. But the Shvusim and the Yisrei D'Rabbanans, yeah, you can't marry a guy, but you could drink with a guy, and you could eat their oil, and you could eat their bread. When there are no safeguards, then the Isser becomes Hefker L'Rabim. That Ezra's job was to safeguard the Torah. Ezra was Masakin Takonos, Ugzeros, and he protected the Torah. He made Siyagim la Torah. But without a Siyag, if you think, yeah, just don't marry a guy. Let's, like the parents say, do whatever you want, just don't marry a guy. 71% of Jews who are not Orthodox today are marrying Goyim. But the Zayda said, the Tata says, don't marry a guy. Well, if you're going to meet Goyim and you're going to drink with Goyim, guess what you're going to do? You're also going to marry Goyim. It doesn't matter if the parents said Shiva, and it doesn't matter how strongly the parents say don't do it. 71% of Jews today who are not Orthodox are marrying Goyim. That's the problem.
Do you have a Gezeres Stam here? No.
What?
Do you have a Gezeres Stam?
It wasn't made yet.
You're talking about now. You're talking about now. I talk about now.
Oh, no, but they're not, it's not, right now we have it, they don't keep it. They don't keep it, right?
But that's why it's difficult to understand why these people came without any leadership, because Ezra and Nechemia wanted to stay with the Rebbes. But how do you send people, ignorant people, to go settle and build a base of mikdash without a leader, without knowledge?
Ezra didn't send them. Koresh sent them. Koresh sent them.
So the leadership sees them going. No one goes with them?
Nechemia went. Ezra couldn't go. Ezra had to stay with his Rebbe.
Alright.
Look, imagine if Ezra would have went without having stayed with his Rebbe. It's not, leadership means real leaders. A leader is somebody who is sufficiently imbued with Torah.
What's the history of Zion?
Look, bottom line is, once Ezra came back with the spirit that he had, look what Ezra did. Ezra gained from his Rebbe for many, many years, and then he was able to come back and rebuild the Jewish people in the proper way, where he was able to raise them up from the piles of ashes. Imagine if he would have come up without that strength of what he got from his Rebbe. Who knows where he would have led them?
Look, even today,
Not every rabbi who learned in yeshiva for 1 year or 2 years is roy to be a leader.
We just took Noah to task.
Yeah,
About his whole generation and why he wasn't able to influence them.
yeah.
You had a whole generation, more than one generation, in Egypt, right? That basically went down to the 49th level, and yet you had a core in Egypt, the whole tribe called Levium.
Right.
But it takes the Levium to task for not being able to rally the troops and keep them on the straight and narrow.
Maybe they did. Didn't they gather? The Jews gathered together. They gathered together on Shabbosim, at least while they were allowed to. Right? They don't. By the way, once we're on the topic, do you remember this? Here you have Noach. He's building his teva for 120 years, and every guy that comes to Noach, he said, "What are you doing?" Noach said, "I'm building teva. God's going to destroy the world." And how many people did Noach influence?
None.
You can't even count on your fingers. None. Right? Imagine, Noach has the biggest yeshiva in the world, the biggest edifice in the world,
Not only
right?
that,
And he has how many Talmidim?
None. Okay.
0.
Now go on.
Avram Avinu, yeah? He has no yeshiva. And how many Talmidim? The Rambam says tens of thousands.
So what happened to them?
Stop getting shot.
Whatever happened to them last year?
What happened? That's like
He asked the question last night.
That's like when they learn about Yosef.
Yeah.
The woman in the upstairs says, "Don't you remember last year? What happened to you? Why did you listen to the man?"
So what was the difference? Why was Avraham Avinu so successful? And Noach, his shiurim were not niskabel. People said, "What are you talking about?" Nobody listened to Noach, and everyone listened to Avraham. What was it? So
He delivered it.
I heard the shame of Moshe Avigdor Amiel.
No,
Rabbi Amiel was a Talmud of the Reb Chaim Ozer Grzinski. Okay, but then he was a very gifted orator. He became rabbi in Antwerp in a very wealthy community, and after that he came to Eretz Yisrael as one of the leaders of Mizrahi, the World Mizrahi movement. And at that point he became the Rav Rashi of Tel Aviv. And who did he beat out? Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Herzog. Oh, yeah, sorry. And but anyway, he has a very interesting comment about this. Now he's not addressing this issue, but he's addressing in general what was the success of Avram Avinu. So he says like this: in the times of Noach, what does it say? Kates kol basar ba'alefane, the end of all flesh. And it says ki hishches kol basar vayigva kol basar. In other words, mankind was viewed as and considered themselves an animal, sophisticated basar. So you could preach from today till tomorrow, but if your message is, you basar, you gotta be better, you basar, you gotta improve. Basar is basar, is basar, fleish is fleish, is fleish.
Well, let me ask you.
Wait,
one second.
The punchline.
However, comes Avram Avinu, and it's this hanefesh asher asu b'charan. Avram Avinu's drasha was, you know who you are? You're not basar. You're divine. You're Tzelem Elokim. You're created in the image of Hashem. So he elevated them. He made them recognize that they have a spiritual quality. That's why he was successful. Because just telling people what to do apparently doesn't work. You have to make them realize their greatness. That was the koach of Avram Avinu. To the point where even Avram Avinu was so influential that even the king of Sodom was in on this new message. What did he say? Tenli hanefesh v'harachush kachlach. He said, Avram, you take the spoils, you give me not tenli habasar. Tenli hanefesh. That means even the king of Sodom realized the value that Avram Avinu was giving over to the world, that people are nefashais. And then Avram Avinu revolutionized the concept of marriage. What did Adam Arishan say to Chava? He said, Chavala, etzem me'atzamai, ubasar mibasari. What's marriage? Marriage is mating of the bodies. Basar and basar. Basar mibasari. But Avram Avinu says to Sarah, V'chaysa nafshi biglalech. Marriage is the meeting of the souls. That's a revolutionary concept that Avram Avinu brought to the world. Until Abraham, Kates kol basar, vayigva kol basar, hishchas kol basar, Avram Avinu, yes, hanefesh asher asu b'charan. Avram Avinu, tenli hanefesh v'arachush kachlach, v'choysa nafshi b'glalech. And, says Rav Amiel, by the way, he also has Lamda Shesfarim on Shas. We once spoke out in a Shiur on Sfir As HaOmer, whether it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, explaining the machlokes rishonim whether the zayin mitzvahs d'Rabbanan are counted as 7 separate mitzvahs or 1 mitzvah. But he says like this: we know that if someone is mezana with a woman after erusin, the punishment is more chamor than if someone is mezana with a woman after nesuin. How's that possible? The answer is erusin is just the meeting of the nefashos. Nesuin already is the basar involved. So the first step of the marriage is more important even than the second step of the marriage. Okay. So,
Well, what happened to all of Avraham Avinu?
what happened to them? Stay tuned. Maybe next year we'll find out.
Well, the whole delivery of Noach was, he wasn't a believer himself because he came to the table, Mifnei Mehamabel.
Oh, Mifnei Mehamabel.
He wasn't a believer. Why did he build the other table?
So we had a very interesting share on that on Friday.
But
He was ordered.
Hashem ordered him to make the table.
I hear.
He ordered him to go in.
Okay, I hear.
And he ordered him to go in.
So what does this mean? They found the Torah. There's now, the Kuzari points out that you can't say that Bechlal, Klal Yisrael did not know about Sukkos, and as if the Messiah was lost. The Messiah was never lost. There was never a time in history where the train of of tradition, where the continuity. There was always Chachamim. There were always Gedolei Yisrael. The Messiah was never broken. However, for the general population, they were not aware of the Yom Tov of Sukkos. The pasuk continues. Va'asher yashmiu. They then said the following: that it should be made known, the Aviru Kol, and proclaim an announcement b'chol areim, in all the cities of Yerushalayim Lemar, Tzu'u hahar, go out to the mountain, v'haviu, and bring alei zayis, olive branches, v'alei eitz, and eitz shemen, and oil wood. And what's the difference between olive leaves and leaves of oil tree? What's an oil tree? It's a kind of tree. Va'alei hadas, and hadas leaves. Va'alei tamarim, date palms. Va'alei eitz avos, and the leaves of a myrtle tree. Lasoi sukkos, to make sukkos kakosov. Now, from here we learn out what schach is allowed to be made out of. Schach is allowed to be made out of anything that grows from the ground and is not mekabel dumya to these types of leaves that are mentioned. Alei zayis, alei eitz shemen, alei hadas, alei tamarim, alei eitz avos, and so forth. Now there is an opinion in the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Shita, is what? That the only thing kosher for schach are the daled minim. Now if you look carefully here, the daled minim are not mentioned.
Some of them are.
Some, which ones are mentioned? Hadas. You have only the eitz avos. The eitz avos are the only ones mentioned.
It's like that.
Oh, I'm going to get to that. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, but it says here you're allowed to use these other materials for schach. No, you're allowed to use them for the walls of the sukkah, but you can't use them for schach. Rabbi Yehuda shita you can only use the daled minim for schach. We pass and you can use anything that is grows from the ground that's not mekabel tumah. Now, what's the difference between alei hadas and alei eitz avos? So Rashi in Masechta Sukkos says there are two kinds of hadasim. One is kasha, one is pasal. Eitz avos means that at every bud, three leaves grow out on the same level. Alei hadas is called what? The hadas shoita, the foolish hadas. Why? Because two leaves grow out and then one a little bit higher. Hadas shoita is not kosher for daled minim. Okay. Vayetzu ha'am, and the people went out. Vayaviu, and they brought. Vayasu lahem sukkos, and they made sukkos. Ishal gagai, each man on his roof. Uv'chatzrei seim, in their courtyards. Uv'chatzrei beis holakim, in the courtyard of God. Or v'chayv shar hamayim, and in the street of the gate of water. Or v'chayv shar Ephraim, and in the street of the gates of Ephraim. Now here is the big problem. This is a very interesting thing. Is there Shulchan Aruch Chaim Gimel? Not Mishnah Berurah. Shulchan Aruch Gimel?
Big one. It's a heavy one.
You're a strong guy.
He's got his hand on it. Okay, help him move on.
Wait.
I ate my Wheaties today.
I wanted to help you.
Thank you. I didn't
Says Rama. Shulchan Aruch says like
Thank
this. Sukkah gezula kshera. A stolen sukkah is kosher. However, the Rama says l'chachil lo yeshiv adam sukkahs chaver shalom midartoi. V'chein lo yasa sukkah l'chachila bekarka shel chaver shalom midartoi. V'chein bekarka shehi shel rabim. Don't make a sukkah on ground that belongs to a rabbim. Miu b'di'eved yatsa. So if you're now to make a sukkah in a public place, people think, I'm going to make a sukkah, and the landlord doesn't let, I'll take it down before I get in trouble. Question is, you might not be yotze mitzvah sukkah. This might be a sukkah gezula. So the question is, how could these Jews over here make a sukkah in these areas? These are public domains. It's Rishus HaRabim.
Why is that such a do?
Because you're building on public property. You don't own the property.
But the sukkah is not stolen.
So, but the sukkah gezula is even if the karka is stolen.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Magen Avram says, this is a Yeridea.
That's it, Gimel.
I told you I wanted to help you.
Don't help me.
No, now I don't want to help you. You goofed. I don't want to.
Arachayim.
Arachaim.
Arachayim.
Good thing you had your Wheaties today.
All right. Here you are. I'm giving you a hand. Oh, my hand is...
Down.
Is the love pasul?
You're yotze, but you're not allowed to do it. But that's the opinion of the Mechaber. You still get an Avera. In other words,
You can't help it.
but you can't make a bracha, and it's a bracha l'atala. Bracha l'atala. That bracha l'atala.
Remember, we're both in the same category. Ah, come on, cut it out.
You was born there, you weren't.
So the Shalom Eshiv says that the street in front of your house you own. It's not considered Rishus HaRabim, especially if you have a document from the city that you're allowed to. Okay, it's a big shaila. It's a big shaila.
So what about those people that ate in these pizzas or sukkahs on public property?
Yeah, but they were also.
So the Malbim says that they did in the Rishus HaRabim because it's a sukkah of a kahal, that they made a T'nai Bezdin. But until now, the Rabbim was never able to make a sukkah because they did not have this kind of Rishus.
Why did you make it in the backyard?
The apartment building doesn't have a backyard, that's why you need permission from the landlord.
I remember in Williamsburg, we made a sukkah on the fire escape. Fire department came along and said to us,
So listen to this.
that you're going to get a summons.
Says the Malbim, now we understand why Klal Yisrael did not make sukkos from Yeshua ben Nun until now. The answer is, because since the Rama says that you're now to make a sukkah in Rishus HaRabim, and we paskin Yerushalayim was not divided among the Shvatim, so that means in the whole Yerushalayim there's no Rishus HaYachid. That means in Yerushalayim for 800 years they couldn't make a sukkah.
So they didn't have a sukkah.
They didn't have sukkah. They couldn't do it. They couldn't make a sukkah. But now in the times of Ezra, they acquired the land the second time, and they were Makadishit. Bezdin was masna that they're allowed to make a sukkah in Yerushalayim.
The Sanhedrin
Wait,
was saying,
what's this 800 years business? That means through the first Bais Rishon?
Yeah.
That Bezdin couldn't come up with this?
Yeah, that's why I said.
No.
Why not? The Sanhedrin was sitting there. I don't know. difficult to believe.
What about Yeshua? But Yeshua didn't do it. Yeshua didn't do it.
So what about what Nathan said? You got some.
So what did they
wouldn't
do?
it?
If they didn't have sickers, what did they do? What about
They're anonymous.
what about the Sanhedrin?
They can't do it. It was ready Niskadesh in the times of Yeshua, and that means Yerushalayim is a Rishus Harabim, and no one has Rishus to make a sukkah.
Not even the Sanhedrin?
What can you do? It's a Rishus Harabim. It's stealing.
How can it be a Rishus Harabim? It belongs to the Jewish people.
So who's going to make? So you're going to make a sukkah?
So the head baster can't say, okay, make a sukkah any way you want in Yerushalayim.
According to the Malbim,
You need to say why did they make a community sukkah?
the Rabbim should have made a community sukkah.
All these people that
Where are you going to make it? And whose shul? What kind of sukkah is it going to be?
wait a minute, all the people that were all the regal,
They didn't have a
they
sukkah.
never washed, they never ate in a sukkah.
In the time of David HaMelech, after they had that counting of the Jews, he bought the place from Ravna. So it became a private property.
Oh, good. It belonged to the Jewish people.
What?
It was a private property.
Private property.
When David HaMelech just bought the site of the Makam HaMikdash.
So
Now it doesn't mean, if it was loinis chalik l'shvatim, it means like this. Doesn't mean that in your backyard you didn't make a sukkah. In your Rishus HaYachid you could make a sukkah. It just meant there were no sukkahs in the Rishus Harabim in Yerushalayim. That's all it means. It doesn't mean nobody ate in a sukkah. Everyone had their sukkah on their merpeset, on their private porch. If you came to be other regal and someone was kind enough to invite you into his private sukkah, fine. But if you want to know, did they have a huge sukkah outside of the Beis Hamikdash so people could eat their shlamim sandwich? No, you had to find a relative, or that's why you had to go to the Plaza Hotel, or you had to, or they had hotels, or the Dan Pearl, and find a sukkah. No,
the kings, okay?
right? The King David Hotel. What is it called?
Right near the Kotel, there's a big sukkah. I ate there.
Yeah, you ate there, but in those days they couldn't have made the sukkah. They couldn't have made. So yeah, that's what you have to say. You have to say that people who had private property made a sukkah on their private property. But public property, there was no sukkahs from the times of Yeshua ben Nun until the times of Ezra. And we will explore this in greater depth, Bli Neder, next week. Shkaya.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.